This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, here with you as always, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to all the Sergeant Steve people on YouTube who have slid over here into the podcast and are now binge listening to the podcast. I truly appreciate that. That's awesome. Some of you are even choosing to be Patreon supporters, which is great. Keeps the boat afloat, keeps the lights on, as I say, with the podcast, pays all those bills. So thank you. Thank you. Today's guest, very excited to have him. This is the second time I'm going to have somebody in his position. It's a rather influential and big law enforcement position in the country. He's got 30 years in public service total. He served in the Navy during Desert Storm. He was also an Arizona corrections officer, then went to work for the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. He just recently retired a lieutenant, is now the sheriff of the whole dang county, and this county is the size of the state of Connecticut. And in his new office, he also decided to allow film crews in. As newly elected sheriff, he launched a bold 6-week experiment, unlocking the doors to an entire pod and giving inmates unprecedented control. After years of violence, lockdowns, repeat offenders having created a cycle of aggression that seems impossible to break, and now the jail becomes a testing ground for a revolutionary approach to rehabilitation. I'm talking about, of course, the Netflix series Unlocked, a Jail Experiment. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Sheriff Ross Teeple. Sheriff.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, it's an honor to have you, sir. I feel honored to have the two Pinal County sheriffs come on the show. Of course, your friend Sheriff Lamb was on here before and is now off into other endeavors. But I'm assuming you guys are good buddies.
Yes, sir. I refer to myself when we're together as the shorter, uglier version of Mark Lamb.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. He really put your agency on the map. It seems like it's like there's, you're like during the intro, I mentioned that you have a Netflix show coming now too. And I have to imagine part of that's from the intention he got the place.
Yes, it is definitely, he's the one that actually signed the contract to get the TV show.
Is that, I mean, I know he's your friend and I'm sure there was conversations about this. That's a lot of pressure, brother. Like you're the new sheriff of like a giant county and it's like, oh, we're going to film a bunch of your jail. It's like, how did you feel about that?
Well, and honestly, it was Mark Lamb. He used my own words against me, and I appreciate it because it was one of them things where I was working as a full-time lieutenant and then running for office, so I had very little free time. And I quite honestly missed some Board of Supervisors meeting when the discussion of this TV show was taking place. And so I won the election, was getting ready to retire as a lieutenant, and I get an email saying that I needed to meet with Lucky 8 Productions about the TV show. So I called Mark up and I was like, what TV show? And he goes, oh, we signed this contract. It's not that other thing, the previous TV show we did. He said, it's about your reentry program. And I was like, I just won the sheriff and you want me to do a TV show? And he's like, what have you been saying for years, Ross, that we do corrections the same, all the same. It hasn't changed since you started in corrections in 1996. So this is your opportunity to make those changes and see what works and what doesn't.
How can you argue with that? Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, that's that would stress me out, man. I would be a ball of stress from that. You're just coming off a political campaign, and now you gotta have the TV show. But I mean, I'm glad you did it because it's a great show. I mean, what's your experience been like with it so far?
It's been great, and to add to the stress, I'd like to point out that my deputies got a pay raise last year. The year prior to me taking office, my detention officers hadn't had a pay raise since before the out of control inflation that we experienced for the last several years. So when I'm running for office, my number one campaign promise is I'm going to get the detention officers the pay raise they need. That's my number one priority. Then I find out about this TV show and I was like, I did not want the perception to be that I cared more about the TV show than my detention officers. So I made sure to go in there as often as I possibly could and talk to every single individual and say, my first priority is getting you a pay raise. And I was very fortunate that we got that passed within months of me taking office.
That's awesome. Yeah, good for you. You definitely got to take care of the guys. It's tough out there, man. Everywhere. It's we're kind of recovering now, but it's everything's gotten so expensive, and like the public salary, especially cops and detention guys, it's like it just hasn't moved fast enough. So it's hard to afford anything.
Yep. Moving target.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, cool. I'm super excited you got that show and that you were strong-armed into it because it's pretty good. I did see a little clip of you guys online chatting. I could tell you guys were good friends and stuff, so I know you wouldn't mind talking about it a little bit.
No, not at all.
That's cool. Sheriff, can you take us back to when you were a young officer or deputy in law enforcement when you're shagging calls? The first time you can remember that you had what you would consider like a hot call, your first hot call, like adrenaline dump.
My first adrenaline dump would have been my first pursuit when I was still on field training. I would definitely remember that forever. I was on phase 2 field training, driving around in my marked patrol vehicle. We get a call that detectives have been surveilling this suspect. The suspect gets into a car after he gets out on the road. They run the plate, and it comes back that the vehicle is also stolen. And when it was stolen, there's a CAD note that says there was firearms inside the vehicle. So now you got a wanted suspect on felonies. He's driving a stolen vehicle, and there's likelihoods that there's weapons involved. So they called for a marked unit to get behind him and pull him over. So I was like, all right, and lit him up. And he did what criminals do. He nailed the gas, and I pursued him through what it was then an unincorporated city of Santan Valley. We got to a T intersection. He went left of center, drove through the T intersection, and hit a very nice old lady in a minivan. And anybody that's been on FTO and you're a probationary employee, you know the feeling when that minivan, I will always remember it going flying by me and I could see the undercarriage. And I honestly thought at that moment, I was like, my career is over before it started. Glad I didn't burn bridges at DOC so I can go back there.
Yeah, I bet. Oh my gosh. Was everybody okay?
Yes, we chased the suspect. My FTO, Jeff Pizzi, and I chased the suspect out into an orchard they used to have back then and found him hiding underneath a bush and got him into custody. And they went and checked on the lady. And God bless her. You talk about supporting law enforcement. She never once complained. She's like, you guys have a job to do. Luckily, she was wearing her seatbelt. She got a little scratched up and from the glass and stuff, but never ever once tried to sue us or anything like that. Our insurance company bought her a new minivan, and it was just great to see that there's people out there that support law enforcement that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a buddy of mine who worked in California, and he was involved in the incident when he had to shoot somebody. He was saving a lady. And she ended up, months later, this guy in a suit walks down his driveway with these papers, and he goes, I'm just serving you. And he served him. She's suing the city. The lady he saved, suing the police department. He was like, at that point in my career, I was like, you know what? I got to get out of this because this community is not what I thought it was.
Yeah, that's really too bad.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah, that'll definitely get you going, especially when you're on FTO, because FTO already sucks because like any time in your life when someone's just looking over your shoulder all the time, it's like that much more pressure. You must have looked at the guy afterwards and been like, or obviously he told you to keep going. So you're like, are we going to be okay? He's like, yeah, go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And you as a law enforcement officer, you know that we're expected to be trained observers and remember everything. And I remember back then they used to call DPS to come and do our pursuit collision reports. And DPS officer showed up there, Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol. He shows up there and he's asking me questions. And when he got to what was your top speed? And I couldn't remember it. I was so concentrated on the radio and the vehicle and stuff like that. And I was like, I honestly don't remember. And I was thinking, they're going to hang me up for that too. I'm just horrible.
You don't have to fire me. I quit. It's over. That's fun. That makes sense. You have an outside agency do it, so there's no conflict of interest or whatever. Have them come in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, the Southwest is wild. I'm guessing that, and I hear like in the news and stuff, that you guys will probably get, it's going to get probably more dangerous for you guys because your proximity to Mexico with the cartel wars going on and all that. They seem to be making all these kind of promises to like come onto American soil and to do stuff. Is there bulletins going out for that for you guys? Are you guys gearing up for any kind of impact from that?
We are, and I'll be here to tell you that I have absolutely no doubt, based on the intel, that the cartel's already been on U.S. soil. Uh, we face a unique situation in Pinal County that I keep beating the drum on this so the rest of the country understands, because the national news media will say Pinal County is not a border county. Pinal County doesn't sit on the border. We actually literally do, because the poor people of the Tohono O'odham Nation, that is a Native American Indian tribe, that the Tohono O'odham people have dual citizenship. Their reservation actually crosses into Mexico. And it ends, the northern part of the Tohono O'odham Nation is just south of Interstate 8 in Pinal County. That's the actual literal border. Because if you go down to the actual border crossing on the Tohono O'odham Reservation, there's, in some places, a single strand of barbed wire. The San Luisbo crossing, it's a 6-lane dirt road on both sides like that. There's no border checkpoints there. There's no Customs and Border Patrol. There's no ICE on there. And the people of the Tohono O'odham Nation, they are being victimized by the cartel. The last FBI roundtable I went to said 80% of the fentanyl coming into this country is coming across the Tohono O'odham Nation border.
Wow, that's nuts, man. That's like a whole nother. We got Canada, it's like we don't worry that much. That's a whole nother aspect of the job that I've never even had to think of. That's intense. Those Border Patrol guys must be getting, a friend of mine's husband's her husband's a Border Patrol agent, and I gotta check in with her, because that's got to be a wild job nowadays.
Yes, it's gotten a lot better. I have a good friend, neighbor that's a Border Patrol, and he's one of them guys that has the vision board, and he will tell you exactly where he's going to be in his career. And under the previous admin, he had his retirement paperwork filled out. He said, I'm done. If she gets into office, they will not let us do our job.
Right.
And if she gets into office, it's going to continue this. And it had to stop. Thank God he's still on the job. One of the biggest examples I can give to people is if they can pull out a map and look at the fact that the Border Patrol big station in Pinal County is in Casa Grande, Arizona. Under the previous admin, they would not pay overtime for Border Patrol that were working on the Tohono O'odham Reservation. So you would have to get to the Border Patrol station in Casa Grande, check on duty, drive an hour and a half down to the border on the Tohono O'odham Nation, work your shift, and then drive an hour and a half back. And so that created these 3-hour windows where it just allowed the cartel to cross with everything that they were smuggling into this country, sadly to include children.
Yeah, I know they're paying attention. I mean, the videos I've seen of like the cartel, with anything that would be like equal to what we have, they seem to have some gear, but they definitely look awkward. Like obviously they don't have the training we have. Like they've amassed the equipment and they have some stuff, but thankfully they just look like they look like thugs with SWAT gear on, basically. They don't really know what they're doing. Thank goodness.
Yep.
But it's not gonna be like, not like they're gonna fight fair or anything either. They're not gonna, they're going to hide on you and do all that sneaky stuff. Also, what worries me too is like everything all these other countries have learned from watching Ukraine with the drones. It's like I have a DJI drone. I never even thought of, obviously, because I'm like normal, I never thought of putting a piece of C4 on it and flying it. But the thing has a mile radius, 1.5 miles. These things will go. So I wouldn't put it past the cartels to be like, yeah, let's just buy drones and fly them into the southwestern U.S. just to create mayhem. I could see them doing that.
Yeah, we had to pass a law in Arizona that said that if local law enforcement could conclusively show that a drone was flying over the international border, we could take it down.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Yeah, that'd be fun too, shooting those things down. It's like shooting a super clay pigeon. That's great, man. Sheriff, can you tell us about like a very strange or bizarre thing you've dealt with on the job?
Oh, probably something that I hope no one ever has to experience was back many years ago. I was a search and rescue deputy. I was a full-time patrol deputy and part-time search and rescue deputy on my days off. And I was on call rotation, and I was on duty the night a small plane crashed into the Superstition Mountains carrying a father, his friend, and some children.
Ooh.
And I was one of the first 3 up on top of that mountain for that rescue, and it turned into be a recovery. And that was the worst Thanksgiving I ever spent, thankfully.
Yeah, I bet. That's intense. Were they, was it a big explosion broken apart? Were they all pretty much still together?
Yeah, no. The one thing, you know how certain moments just stick in your head and you will never forget them. The one thing I always remember is a good friend of mine that happened to be one of our search and rescue volunteers. So he's up on the mountain collecting body parts and he's not even getting paid for it. And we're trying to keep the mood light and we're, like cops do, we joke with each other, we
Yeah,
razz
dark
each
humor.
other.
Yeah.
Dark humor, and we're talking, and all of a sudden I will always remember his eyes fixed on something right next to me, and I could tell that it was disturbing to him, and so I stopped my communication and I turned and looked, and in the cliff right next to me was a little baby's arm stuck in the
Oh,
cliff. Yeah.
wow. That is awful. My goodness. Yeah, those are the things people don't think about when they become cops, seeing stuff like that and having to, I mean, you still clear in your mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely clear. It's clear on my mind that little baby's arm, and then the first body that we recovered was still hot enough that it melted through the white body bags that we had.
Wow. That's crazy. How did they get you up there? Did you guys have to take a chopper or did you hike up?
They took us up there in a chopper. Back then, the Pinal County Sheriff's Office didn't have an air unit at all, so we would rely on the troopers, DPS troopers, and actually a local home builder here that builds track homes. He had his own personal helicopter, and he volunteered and came out. MCSO also, we used their helicopter, but it turned out to be a multi-day event, and so very grateful for the helicopters that came out and flew us up there to Flatiron and picked us up at Flatiron, because to hike from the Lost Dutchman State Park up to the top of Flatiron's a good day hike.
Yeah. Private chopper guy, I would already be nervous if it's some Yahoo that owns his own chopper. I'd be like, I'll take the next one. When's the state chopper coming back?
And I'm a special kind of crazy because I volunteered to get on a boat that was designed to sink, a submarine. And also, one of the funnest things I've done in my career is getting certified to rappel out of a helicopter. I absolutely loved it. I say the day that's not exciting is the day you need to quit doing it. But it was great rappelling out of a helicopter. So the fear of flying has never been in my forte. And the one thing I always remember is when we're flying, DPS Ranger's a very, very Army law enforcement helicopter. No bells and whistles. It does what it does, and it does it really well. Then we get in this private individual's helicopter, and he's got Bose headphones to cover it up and leather seats. And I was like, I could get used to this.
It's like a Cadillac. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Man, that guy must have had he must have had a successful business. He's got a chopper like that. Those ain't cheap. Those are crazy.
No,
my buddy's like a hobbyist pilot, and it's like this stuff, like even like, because you can buy like a Cessna, like a fixed wing plane for like not crazy money. Like you have to have some money, but then just the upkeep and the engine inspections and all the stuff you got to do to keep that thing certified to be in the air it's friggin' expensive owning one of those things.
Yeah, maintenance on we have an A-Star, an OH-58, and we love our Huey. We have a Vietnam era Huey that we've dumped a lot of money into. But just to get blades for a helicopter are just outrageously expensive. It costs you as much as a small house.
Yeah, I bet. Man, when I was in Southern California, I'll never forget this. I felt so bad for the guy. A chopper pilot in training in Pasadena hit another chopper, like the blades hit, and trashed both choppers. They're both new choppers. I was like, that guy's got to feel like like this big right now. He destroyed. I mean, I think they're millions of dollars a piece, obviously. Crazy.
Gone in a heartbeat.
Yep. Sheriff, let me ask you. I see that drones are really kind of like on the scene now. Like initially around here, like fire departments had them, but then like bigger PDs had them and stuff. And they seem to be like a pretty affordable way. They're pretty capable. They have thermal cameras and all that stuff. For where you are, and mostly, I guess I see them mostly with like search and rescue stuff. They seem to almost be able to replace a helicopter if you know the area they're in. Would you agree with that, or do you think there's much more you can do with a chopper?
With us, it hasn't replaced the chopper, but it has definitely replaced a lot of the maintenance costs with the chopper, because we can use a fixed wing drone with a flare, heat signature on the bottom of it, night vision, and we can fly that fixed wing drone for hours, and using AI technology to figure out that the person might be there. And then we can fly our search and rescue team in to rappel out of the helicopter or land and let them into the area. So we're not spending that enormous amount of time flying the helicopter around trying to find the individual that's lost.
All right. So it's not replacing, but definitely is a good supplement to save some dough.
Definitely augmenting by a big time.
Yeah. Sheriff, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call you remember?
Probably, it was a stolen vehicle. I'd gotten behind this vehicle. It was actually what we call a sand rail. It's where they used to take Volkswagens and then they'd make a tubed chassis out of them and they run them in Yuma and they'll run them down washes and stuff.
Oh, really?
And you can get them street legal in Arizona if you do certain things.
Like a
you have
dune
to have
buggy?
a windshield wiper and a horn and rear view mirrors. But I got behind a sand rail one time up in County Island north of Apache Junction, run the plates on the sand rail, and it came back as stolen. And I lit the guy up. I don't think he ever seen me because he had really tall, small mirrors, but he drove home. I got home. As he's climbing on the sand rail, I'm fully uniformed as a deputy. I start to tell him he's under arrest. When I'm starting to tell him I'm under arrest, all of a sudden out of nowhere, his brother came out of the house at a full speed and knocked me down. And from then on, it was a knockdown, drag out fight. And I will tell you, that's the one that will always go down in my memory because I was within seconds of getting my weapon out because I was near zero exhaustion. I mean, I had nothing left in the battery. And well, when we finally got done, them two and me, it was literally like out of the movies where I took my cuffs and I handed them to him because I didn't have the strength to put the cuffs on and he didn't have the strength to fight anymore.
Yeah, one of those your muscles are just shaking. You're just done. That's scary. That's
knockdown. Oh, sorry.
No. I was saying people don't realize it doesn't take that long to get there either. When you're fighting a grown man who doesn't want to be in custody. I mean, you see it on the videos. It takes 2 or 3 cops sometimes. So if you're doing that, you're the gas in the gas tank leaves quick.
It does. And I didn't have as big a gas tank then. Now I got all this ballast, so
yeah, you're good now. Yeah, you're good now. You're a machine. Is this what you're saying? Like, because up here we have things that they take out on Cape Cod on the dunes. They call them dune buggies. Is it something like that?
We have dune buggies out here, but these are straight up pipe vehicles. If you looked up Volkswagen Sandrail, a VW Sandrail.
I'm going to look that up.
Kenilworth.
Oh, go ahead.
From what I remember, Kenilworth was the first manufacturer of a sandrail. You could order the parts, and then you brought it home and you welded it all together and used the torsion bar front end from a Volkswagen and then the transaxle and the engine from a Volkswagen. There you go.
That's it. Okay, I've seen those before. Yeah, that's cool. That looks like fun.
They are a lot of fun. One of the funnest things, I'm a car nerd. Anything with an internal combustion engine or any Second Amendment items, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
I can geek out on. But one of the really fun things about a sandrail is they're so light that you can install cutting brakes where it only locks up one of the back tires. And so if you hit them, just like driving a tank, you're going down the sand and you hit the left cutting brake, that car will turn to the left right now, faster than you could ever input the steering wheel.
That's cool. Yeah, those look like fun, man. We once were stopped in Sedona, and on my birthday actually, and we kind of splurged and rented one of those big buggies, like 4-person side by sides. That was it, man. It was so cool because there was like I'm from Mass, where everything is so regulated, and they're like, yeah, just they give you the directions to how to get to the Red Rock trails or whatever, and you just drive right on the road. Like they're like, yeah, you can just go through the lights and all that. And I'm like, you can drive this thing on the road? They're like, oh yeah. And it was really cool too. It was like, I got lost out there, and before I went, they're like, yeah, we can follow you. So if you get lost, here's a special phone. And sure enough, man, we were out there, 4 hours. We were coming back from some old Indian village or something in the side of cliffs. And I'm like, I'm totally lost. And they were like, yeah, go down here, take a left, take a right. Before I knew it, they had me back in town. I mean, it was a slick operation. Very expensive, I'll tell you that, to rent one.
Yeah, but well worth it.
Oh, it was so cool. I mean, it was so neat. And then we ran into some knuckleheads out there too. There was one slope that was like so steep. And this thing we were in was made to climb. Could go up almost anything, 4-wheel drive. And there's a guy out there with like an old, it was like a AMC Eagle, those station wagons that had like 4-wheel drive.
I remember the AMC Eagle.
He stuck like halfway up it, my wife's like, and did not look like, the characters who were in this vehicle did not look like some people we should stop. 4. So my wife's like, should we stop and help them? I'm like, oh, hell no. We'll tell someone they're here, but I'm not stopping with these guys with my 2 little kids in this dune buggy with me. Didn't even have my piece on me. I'm like, no way.
No,
but
not going to happen.
They were out there up to some kind of shenanigans, I'm sure. Sheriff, can you, do you have a heartwarming story? Positive encounter?
Positive encounter. I've got a lot of them, but something that someone would want to hear. Or I would think heartwarming to me, and as an experience I will always remember is there was a young lady that we were dealing with. She was constantly running away from home. She had a boyfriend that was legally statutory raping her, but we could never prove it because he was an adult, and she would run away from home and get in contact with him. And I was relentless that I was going to get him. Arizona is kind of stupid in the fact that our kidnapping law says that you're guilty of kidnapping if you take a child for the purpose of sex or involuntary servitude. And so if you can't prove that, if you can't get the minor to say that that's they were leaving to go meet this person for sex, then you can't charge the trespassing thing. She continued to do it, and I ended up charging him with custodial interference, which means that if you take someone's child without the parent's permission and move them anywhere, it's custodial interference. I will tell you that back then, when I submitted the charges, I got told by my fellow law enforcement, that's only for child custody issues. That's only custodial interference is when 2 parents split up and one of them's not paying attention for the parenting time. And I said, nope, I read the statute. It fits. I went and met with the county attorney. The county attorney says, yep, you're absolutely right. This actually fits.
Nice.
And so we ended up charging him, getting conviction on him. And it gave that break to her that she then could mature enough to realize that her best intentions were not his intentions. I didn't know I had that positive an impact on her until it was several years later. Her and her parents showed up at the sheriff's office wanting to speak to me. And, cops, we think, they're going to file us a lawsuit because of something I did back then. But she had actually graduated from the Air Force boot camp and wanted to come back and tell me that the reason that she turned her life around was because I was so relentless that I wouldn't allow her to make those childhood mistakes that were going to cost her the rest of her life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that, man. I am right on the precipice of hopefully not that situation, but I have a 16-year-old daughter, so she's a good kid. But it is a time in their life when you start to give them some rope. And I just remember, you can't help but remember when you were 16 and the things you did, the chances you took, and I'm still here to tell the tale, but it's like you kind of really have to fight that as a parent, not to be like this overbearing parent, but at the same time, you don't want to have to have a cop step up like you had to. You know what I mean? Like you want to guide them in the right way. So thank God you were there for that, because it sounds like the parents are having trouble.
Yes, they were at wit's end. They were the ones that they actually, because it's weird. Every state's different. I believe in Massachusetts, the sheriff's office primarily handles civil paperwork.
Yeah, they do the jails and they do some civil process and stuff. Yeah.
So in Arizona, the sheriff is called in the state constitution. He's called the CLEO, the chief law enforcement officer of the county. And primarily what that means, case laws determine, is I'm responsible for providing policing services in all unincorporated areas of the county. And that's where this came into important, because this young lady and her parents lived in an incorporated city, and the parents had been calling the police up over and over and over again. And they were at wit's end because the police would drive and find her at a park with him. They'd be fully clothed. She says, we're just talking. And so the police would take her and bring her back home and not submit any charges. And the parents were like, we don't know what to do. Every time we find her, that the city police are like, because they just didn't know. And so when they started contacting them, when I found them, they were actually outside of an incorporated city in the county area because they were learning, this child predator was learning that he needed to go outside the city to not be caught. And I found him in a dry riverbed, what we call a wash.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for that, man. Wow. Yeah, it is wild. It is really weird, and it's kind of slowly changing here. They're forever. Mass is a very, it's very old. Like they do everything very old. Like it's very like there's constables, and then there's sheriff's constables, and there's local constables, and there's police, and we have the state police. But the sheriffs are still recognized as a top law enforcement official in the county, and there's. The old laws are very unclear. So like recently sheriffs have been branching out because of the crisis in law enforcement. There's, we have these sheriff's departments that can't help because they're bound by the MGLs or it's unclear. So recently they have been contracting with cities. So the city will be like, hey, our city's down 4 guys on the shift, send some sheriff's deputies, and they kind of through transfer of authority, if you're working with the police, you have their authority, and kind of started doing that to help. And now the sheriffs are actually starting to send people not just to corrections academy, but they're sending them to the police academy in Mass. So they're certified police. But I think they actually have to change some laws because it's really wonky, really to the point where it's case law. Like we had a deputy sheriff pull over a drunk and arrest him. And then it was like, well, he can't do that. He doesn't have the authority. But the judge finally ruled and said it would be ridiculous to say that a deputy sheriff doesn't have the authority to arrest somebody for drunk driving. And the judge squeezed it into the sheriffs are allowed to arrest for anything that's considered disturbing the peace. That's disturbing the peace. Drunk. It shouldn't be like that. They should just have, if you're going to do it. Like make the guys cops. Like it's like steering a battleship though. You know how it is with states,
Yes, I do.
It's and the Mass State Police are very they don't want us to have any kind of peace officer status like in Mass. Like we have like region agreements, like so Western Mass law enforcement agreement. So all of us Western Mass cops have jurisdiction in each other's towns if your town is signed on, which most of them have. Because otherwise you're in these towns and it's like you cross the border, you're nobody. You're enforcing a civil motor vehicle infraction. You cross the border, you're kidnapping that person with your lights because you're no longer, you're not a cop anymore. If it's a felony or fresh pursuit, it's different. But for like basic stuff, we have no authority unless it's a felony or a warrant. So we have to make these pacts, like law enforcement pacts. We've tried before, like states around us just have peace officer status. We all go to the academy. We all get sworn in, and then you just have jurisdiction in the state. You work for your city or town. You don't go outside your city and town when you're patrolling, obviously. But from what I hear, it's the state police union going, whoa, we have authority in the whole state. We don't want everybody to have that. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I would have to respectfully disagree with them on that because the thing I've always looked at is those type situations, if the state police needed help the next county over, I bet they'd want you to go over there then. But so let's just give everybody in Arizona, we're great with the fact that we're state certified. We're a jurisdiction free state. So all that's required is you attend an AZ post, Peace Officer Standard and Training Academy. You get that academy certificate, and then you work for an agency that has law enforcement powers.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. It's silly. It really isn't. I don't think it's the rank and file who care because all the troopers I work with are great. I think it's mostly the power of the state. They want to keep that to themselves, whoever's in the upper echelons, so it's just weird. It is super interesting though. Like I have buddies from other countries that are like blown away with how we do law enforcement here. They cannot believe the states have all these different ways to do law enforcement. They're like, this is crazy. I'm like, oh, that's what we are, we're mushed together.
I think it's ironic that my beautiful wife is from France. She's half French, half Tunisian, and she has a truly, really multicultural family. She has one sister that lives in Sweden, and we have another sister that lives in Tunisia. Her brother lives in France still, but my sister-in-law who lives in Sweden, she's a Swedish police officer there. And when she came to visit, we took her around, and the thing that she was absolutely blown away by is in Arizona, if we're so pro Second Amendment in Arizona that if you retire as a peace officer, you get your gun that you carried when you were on duty.
Nice.
And in Sweden, she has to go into work every morning, get her gun out of a locker, put it in her holster, and then work her shift. And then at the end of the day, she has to put her gun back in a locker. And when she retires as a police officer, even the worst people that she put away in prison know that the days she's done as a police officer, she will not be able to have any guns whatsoever.
Yeah, that's like the European model. Canada does the same thing. I had a Canadian cop on, and he's like, yeah, we lock it up at the station. The chief inspector or whoever can give you permission. If you're working a case with some real bad characters, they might give you a time period you can carry to and from work with your gun. But in the end, you're going to end up locking it up at home. It's like you and I both know you're going to see somebody in the grocery store or out with your family that you arrested years ago. Not a few weeks permission to have your gun. You know what I mean? It's crazy. I try not to complain too much when they're on the show because they didn't grow up like you or I, so they don't have that affinity towards being able to protect yourself or liberty by firearm. They just don't. To them, it just does not compute at all. Just a totally different way to be raised. You know.
It is.
So I try not to rag on them too much because they are. I never met a nicer person than a friggin' Canadian. You know, they're the best. They love beer and they love hockey. You know, what's not to like?
Yeah, they live up to the stereotype in a good way.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Sheriff, let's talk about this question. I want to talk about the show a little bit more. But first, this question is like really popular because there's a lot of people on here that are thinking about being cops, or they kind of listen to you guys tell your stories, and eventually I'll get an email like, I binge listen to your episodes. I'm going into police academy. Like, it really, like, they hear your stories and it really changes how they think and makes them, pull the proverbial trigger on being a cop. What would you tell new officers, new deputies, new special agents, anybody getting into law enforcement? What would you tell them for some advice?
Based on some of the applicants that we have nowadays, I would tell the younger applicants to put down their phone and start talking to people one-on-one. It is absolutely just unfathomable that we keep joking here in law enforcement in Arizona that eventually we're going to have to start allowing them to use emojis when they write a police report. But we have had applicants that have applied for us, and I'm from obviously a way different generation. I'm Generation X, and I use the example when I joined the military. If you had a problem with your barracks mate, you were expected to go out in the back of the barracks and settle it. And whoever won, and whoever lost. And then at the end of the night, the winner bought the loser a drink at the enlisted man's club. So we got into physical altercations. And that's one of the things. I'm a polygraph examiner, pre-employment polygraphs. I don't do them anymore since I became sheriff. But one of the questions we ask is how many physical fights have you been in since high school? And then you break down the reasons for it, because if the reasons for it, like in my case, I had a barracks mate that he would watch pornography at full blast in the barracks and you couldn't sleep. And I told him to turn it down, went and talked to the barracks petty officer, and the barracks petty officer said, "What are you telling me for? You guys need to settle this. Tell me, go out back and tell me who won." I won. But
nice.
So that's when we're doing the pre-employment polygraph. You got to find out if there was an actual justification for the fight. You just didn't deck somebody because they took too long at McDonald's or whatever. What we're finding now with the younger generation is they've never been in a physical altercation their entire life. They can argue with someone over the internet, but they have no verbal judo. They have no ability to talk to one person one-on-one. So that's the big thing is get out there, put yourself into an environment where you have to talk to people.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That is great advice. These guys, they're not even like holding hands anymore. They're not even trying to date each other. There's like not only not fighting, they're not like, touching at all. Like, it's really, really weird. And I see it all the time just in public when you try to deal with a teenager and they almost are like, they are freaked out talking to an adult and they just will go right on their phone. You have to be like, hey, up here. You know what I mean? It's like this escapism into their phone it's sick. Like, it's really bad. And when I was funny you said that about the fighting, I got trained at LAPD in the backgrounds unit, just checking out new officers for them by a guy who'd been doing it a while. And he said they used to ask that. They used to say, have you been in a fight? Or like they would also accept, like, did you play contact sports? Did you wrestle? Did you box? Martial arts, football, basketball, anything? Like, did you do anything? And they took those questions away because of manpower issues. And we would get, like, I would have a candidate, I'm being trained, and I would be like, he looks great to me on paper. And my trainer would look at it and be like, he lives at home. He's like 25. He lives in his parents' basement. He's has a terrible job history. He didn't play sports. Like, he never has he been in a fight? Did you ask him? I'm like, no, I didn't know we were supposed to ask that. He's like, yeah, you're not really supposed to. But like, he would eviscerated the guy and was like, this is not, I mean, he's probably a good person, but I don't think he'll be ready. Like, the police academy is not going to give you all that. It's a very controlled environment, although they try to make it scary. It's a big game, but they kind of took that away from LAPD. They kind of let the background guys stop using their instincts to hire people.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was tough there. They were like, when I was there, 2017, I started, I was there for 2 years before I went to another job, and they were gearing up they wanted over 10,000 by the Olympics. Now they're at like 8,500. The Olympics are it's like, guys, not only you're not going to have 10,000, you might not have 8,500 when they come. Now what are you going to do? Because you've pissed all over cops so much that, like, this place used to be like, the place, LAPD. Right. No, it's not worth it to people anymore.
No, it's not.
It's such a shame. And I know a lot of guys that are going to like places like where you work, or a couple cities in like Colorado, Idaho, like places that like cops and are like, hey, thanks for, let me get your coffee. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, people who actually, why would you, I say it all the time to people, like, what, just be careful. I get it if you grew up in the community and like you love that community, and like I grew up in Mass and I work here. But if you're young and you really want to do police work, like, maybe look around, go do some ride-alongs in like places where they actually like you. Like, why give your service to a place that hates you? Go someplace where like the admin supports law enforcement and the public likes you. And I think that will have a nice organic effect in maybe fixing some attitudes in these other places.
I agree. And it's actually one of our recruiting tools is if someone's, especially laterals from other states, we've hired so many laterals from other states, from other agencies inside the state. And we always tell them the first thing, come to Pinal County, go for a ride along. Find out that Pinal County supports law enforcement. Yes, you're going to have the different factors. You're going to have the same family. Heck, there's a family where I've arrested the grandfather, the father, and now the son.
Yep.
And so that family's never going to support me, and I'm fine with that. But for the most part, wherever you go in my career in Pinal County, there is someone there saying, thank you for your service. Let me get your soda for you. Something along that lines.
Yeah, that's cool. It's important too, because you don't think it is until you're on year 5 and you're like, why do I hate this job that I loved? And you can figure it out pretty quick because no one likes you. It supports you. Oh, what a shame. So, Sheriff, let's look at this TV series that you got into here. Now, what did the staff have to say? Were they excited about it? Were like, this could be cool? Or were they kind of like, oh, what's this going to be like being filmed and going into the jail with the cameras and all that? And what do the prisoners think?
I think it becomes pretty clear in the first or second episode that the majority of my staff were not into it. There were some staff that said, let's try this. This sounds good. But there's one, we call it the big reveal scene, where I have everybody into our conference room and I explain to them what we're going to do. And you can read the looks on their faces and you can hear what they say. I will always stress open dialogue at the sheriff's office. It's something that my predecessor, Mark Lamb, did. And it just makes a better work environment. It is protecting the employees, listening to them. And so I told them, I said, it's funny how many people from other countries have reached out to me through either my email or social media to tell me how upset they were that my staff talked bad about the experiment and, saying they didn't support you. They should have been behind you. No, they did support me. They supported me by coming up with their concerns. And I always respond with their concerns. Well, tell me how to fix it. If you have a problem, tell me what the solution is. Let's talk about it. So I had absolutely no problem with any of the voices that you see on the show.
That's great. I mean, that's how it should be done too. And we're on season 2. So, it must not have went that badly. And you gave them the opportunity to have input. That's probably what they wanted the most.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody in particular that from this series that, like, I don't know if you could even comment on this, but you think has the best shot at rehabilitation, or is going to do the best when they get out? If you don't want to comment on that, that's cool.
there's two individuals that there's one guy that in the show, I'm sorry, there's a guy in the show, an inmate in the show that you see a lot, but you never hear him speak. I think he has maybe 3 words he said in it. He was the one that took the program the most serious. And that's not good for television. So that's why you see him in the background. You might see him having a conversation with someone else. But he stepped into the program and said, absolutely, I need this. I've been screwing up for so many times. This is my 3rd time down. And this individual that I'm talking about actually was in the program knowing that he was about to be sentenced to DOC. He was 3-time loser. He was just waiting for the judge to come back and say, this is how long you're going to spend in DOC. But through the program, we got him to understand that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We call it a reentry program because that's actually the state law that the money came from. That's what the state law is called. But really what it is getting you prepared for the next stage of life. Getting him prepared was getting him prepared for DOC and get him the education and the real world skills that he could use so he could better himself when he's at DOC. So by the time he gets out, the average length of stay for an inmate in my jail is 19 days. You got the guys that are booked for misdemeanor DV and they're released on their own recognizances the next day. And we've got guys that have sat in my jail for years waiting to go to trial because their defense team keeps postponing. But you average them all out, that's 19 days. Well, I couldn't take this individual and get him a GED in 19 days. But what we did was show him why he needed that GED and get that mindset in his place. So now he's positively programming at the Arizona Department of Corrections and he's getting his GED.
I love it. That's so cool. You always, if you're not in that world, you don't work at a jail or you're not in a jail. You just think about it as like, lock them away, punish them. But really it's supposed to be a rehabilitation. They're supposed to be like, if you were just to take people and put them in a jail and give them no hope, how would that turn out? Like it'd be horrible for everybody involved. But like you said, that light at the end of the tunnel and be like, all right, yeah, this sucks. You're being punished. It's, you got to pay the piper, but you're here. Why not prepare you to be a good functioning citizen? I love that. That's great.
And that quite honestly was part of the screening process because, I make absolutely zero bones about the fact that truly evil people, child molesters, murderers need to be, I think child molesters should be a death penalty. We're working towards that in Arizona, but at the very least, it should be you molest a child, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. And I could care less about teaching you any life skill.
Yeah.
But the others, if we identify people that maybe they made the worst mistake of their life, we've all made a mistake, I think, at some point in our lives where if a cop would have been there, we would have probably been arrested. I know as a teenager, there was a couple of things that I did looking back at it now, and I was like, ooh.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you, brother.
Yeah. And so take those people that made a mistake or never developed the life skills. And this is something that I explain to people that's really caught on with the residents of Pinal County is we take someone that maybe doesn't have societal skills to know how to interact with their neighbors. They screw up with somehow. We put them in jail and we tell them when to go to sleep, when to wake up, when the lights are going off, when's it's quiet time, when to eat, when to shower, all these things, when to turn their laundry in. We tell them, we control every aspect of their lives when they're in jail. And then this person gets released from jail and you're wondering why they don't know to turn off the stereo at 10 o'clock at night. Because there was no one there knocking on the door telling them to turn off their stereo. So that was one of the first things that we started with, that I was apprehensive, but I was very grateful that they did learn that mindset, because when we unlocked the doors, it was, you guys tell us when quiet time is. You guys tell us when to turn the lights off. And you have them younger night owls that they wanted to party all night long. You got some guys that have jobs, or the older guys that want to go to bed early because they want to get up the next morning to attend their classes or whatever. And so they were able to resolve that, and they came up with times that, if you watch the experiment, the time that the lights go off and the time that they wake up in the morning, the inmates decided what that time was.
So interesting. Yeah, because I mean, from guys I've talked to on the show even before, they said that their biggest fear is an incident when everybody's out and there's only like 2 deputies on duty or 2 COs. So you're letting everybody out And then like when you initially first did this, I mean, obviously you picked candidates that you wanted for this. Was there any kind of heightened response team ready to be like, all right, well, we're going to have all these people out at once. There's a little bit, just statistically, we could have a big problem more often than we would if we didn't do this. Did you have like a TAC team ready or something in case there was an issue?
Yes, our CERT team was on the ready, especially when the experiment first started. And then there was a major setback in the experiment that when we had to lock them down for a little bit, and when we let them back out, that's always a point of contention. So we were ready for that. What we really did was went from direct supervision, having a detention officer in there all the time, to an indirect supervision. So we were still watching on the cameras. We didn't have all the cameras that Netflix did because Pinal County doesn't have the money Netflix has, but we're still watching them and always at the ready that, hey, if this thing kicked off, we're in there in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I can totally see that. Well, Unlocked Jail Experiment Season 2 available now on Netflix. Like I said before, Sheriff, my hat's off to you for running this, running all these things at once. Just hit the ground running, literally, with a TV show, a new office, all that. I hope you have many more years in the office, and it was an absolute honor to have you on the show, sir. Is there anywhere you want to? Do you have any social media, anything like that, or do you want me to just put the link to the show, the Netflix show, in the show notes?
Yeah, that would be great. If people want to follow me personally, it's Teeple for the People. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Actually, on X, formerly Twitter, it's just Ross Teeple. I got on Twitter early enough that I got my actual own name, but I'm on there. And then if you notice, the Pinal County Sheriff's Office has 1 million subscribers on YouTube.
Ooh,
so
baby,
if they want to follow the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, also, we appreciate the subscriptions. One of the things that when we monetized our YouTube channel, we got it passed in a city or county ordinance. The supervisor signed off on it. All the money that we make on our YouTube channel goes to local charities. The Boys and Girls Club, Little League games, baseball games. We sponsor teams. We sponsor the rodeo here. So if you like and subscribe, understand every time you click on one of them commercials, you're helping a kid get a baseball glove or a basketball.
I love that. That's awesome. You know, the your buddy there, retired Sheriff Lamb, is one of my competitors now on YouTube. He's got. I'm nipping at his heels. I'm just over 100K. I think he's got like 350,000. So I'm trying to keep up with the big dog out there, you know?
Well, here in Pinal County, we call him Sheriff Lamb because he earned that title because he served 2 terms very greatly. But we also call him our next congressman.
Yeah, I love that. I hope that. When is that race when is that coming up?
July of this year. So a couple months away, and he'll have won the primary.
And he's on board. Has he started campaigning and all that yet?
Yes, sir, he has.
All right.
He's out there in full throttle. Once he got Janelle to agree that, okay, we can do this again, they are on board. It's full steam ahead.
So he's got you. He's got Trump Dog is on board, right?
Trump endorsed, and he's got the endorsement of the congressman that's actually vacating that seat to run for governor, Andy Biggs.
How does he not win? He's in there, baby.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a big hat like that in the White House, personally.
Yeah, I would too.
That would be awesome.
There definitely needs to be a new sheriff in town in Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheriff, like I said, honored to have you. I'll put all the links to your stuff in the show notes, and I'm going to do the outro to the show. Can you hang on for just like 2 or 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll be right back with you. The great Sheriff Ross Teeple. What a fun conversation, and just great guy. Just great vibe from that guy. Man, I wish we had a top dog law enforcement official up here like that. That would be sweet. Let me see here. I got to do the thank you to the Patreon sponsors. Guys, like I always say, if you love the show and you listen to a bunch of episodes and you're thinking, how can I support old Stevie Boy and throw him some shekels to help this thing keep going, you can do that at the Patreon link. It's in the show notes. A few different levels. If you pick Sergeant and above, you will get a shout out on the show, starting with lieutenants. Who I'm talking about is a great and powerful Andy Biggs. Kyle Roberts, everybody. Kyle, thank you. Michael Roach, Roach Machines, AI Solutions, check him out. The handsome Lane Campbell, Sergeant Lane Campbell, on to the sergeants. Gary Steiner, Adam Meehl, Seth Wright, Lauren Stimson, thank you. Jason Lau, Sasha McNabb, Sean Clifford, Tammy Walsh, holding it down at dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. George Testier, thank you, sir. Dennis Carrasquillo, my man, thank you. Scott Young, thank you, brother. Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, amazing woodworker. Check him out on Instagram. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys. Hope you're enjoying Wyoming. Raymond Arsenal, my brother, thank you. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, my man. Stay safe out there, brother. The great Elliot Sykes, everybody, still here. I love you, buddy. Brad Thompson, Big Bear Investigations. Check out Brad. Clark LaCuff, thank you, Clark. Adam McMahon, thank you, sir. Sheriff Ronald Long, thank you, Sheriff. Zachary Pleat, the great Jason Labrie. Lisa Gano, Sherry Finch, Eric Smith, Jackson Dalton, Black Box 80, thank you, sir. The great Marcus Johansson, Brett Lee, Alex Wasick, and newly added, the great Lauren Smith. Thank you, Madame. Thank you. Guys, thank you so much for all the support you've shown the show and joining the Patreon. Rest assured, the show will remain free so that everybody can hear and appreciate what the men and women of law enforcement are actually out there doing for us. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.